And then Alexander has an email. Hi, Eric and Roth. I writing to you from Toasty, Norway, which is my favorite intro ever to an email. All right, let's delve into let's get a Marvel question here. Since Sony and Marvel have made a deal regarding Spider-Man, do you think we will see a TV show about a Spider-Man character, maybe a show about Black Cat or Flash Thompson in the military? Of course, the last one depends on the age of the new Peter Parker. These shows could even be made by Sony and still be part of the MCU. Love the podcast. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I'm coughing on his question, but thank you.
No. No, I think that deal was made for the movies, first of all. It was made to share the character. Sony still owns the character.
Has the film rights.
They don't own Spider-Man outright, obviously. I think that Marvel still has actually the merchandising rights to Spider-Man.
And technically they have the TV rights.
And the TV rights to Spider-Man, but Sony has the movie rights to Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man will show up in the MCU, but it would get, because the MCU and Marvel TV are connected, and then it's an interconnected universe, and that would get very, very complicated because Sony has that character in movies, which means it would have to exist in the same... I'm having trouble right now. Which means that it would have to exist in the same world as the Marvel TV shows, which Sony has really no stake in that. And maybe you don't have to use Spider-Man, but you could use some of these other characters and make it all connect. But that would get very complicated, looking at what Sony was doing with Spider-Man in the solo films. Yeah. So my answer is no. I mean, I think it's just way too complex.
No, I completely agree. Yeah. And I understand the question, because when we heard this happening, you can't help but get ahead of yourself. Yeah. With they can do this, and they can do this, and they can do this. But at the end of the day, Sony still has those film rights. Yeah. It's not like Marvel getting back the film rights to the character.
Marvel can just use the character in the film, which is exciting. That's like win enough.
It's huge, but there's still so many hoops to do all this other stuff. And it's very notable that the press release was so careful to say the new Spider-Man will be introduced in a Marvel movie, and then there'll be a solo Spider-Man Sony movie set in the same universe, and that's it. Yeah. I'm sure the plan is to reevaluate beyond that. Yeah. But we don't know what's going to happen beyond that, and they don't know, or they would have said, 6 movies. They would have made that announcement.
I think they're going to be making those decisions as they see how this does.
And it's still going to involve a lot of people getting
a lot of money,
a lot of personalities. Mm-hmm. I keep coughing. Sorry. The new head of Sony is Tom Rothman, right? Yes. Who used to head Fox, where apparently he didn't get along with Marvel. Right. So that's great.
That's complicated. Yeah. Now you're getting me. You're playing. I was thinking about that too. I'm like, wow, that's a interesting. Like, given this big move. That big move is an interesting move. Yeah. I mean, Amy Pascal's going to be the producer, and I think she's going to be the liaison between Marvel and Sony. So that should be nice. Not a tough job at all. Mm. Yeah. But I think it does get super complicated, way too complicated for them to, again, try to invest in a television series when television series are really hard to make and really hard to make successfully. And Marvel, to date, I mean, look, Netflix series will be a whole different thing for Marvel. And we love S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter, but they haven't been huge successes for them. So I just think to try and invest that much energy in something that may not ultimately even work. Yeah. No, I don't think. I think they're going to put their energy elsewhere. Yeah, so never say never, but I think it would take years of a successful relationship being built through the films, you know? Because, again, I'm like, Alexander, I totally understand it, because I had that night when your mind was reeling, I had the, oh my God, what if they put Peter Parker on Jessica Jones? Because in the comics, she went to high school with him, and it's a fun part of her backstory that she was crushing on Kiki Parker, who thought no girls liked him. Actually had this weird girl who was like into him that he just didn't notice because guys are stupid. But and my first thought was, oh my God, they can do that. Well, and he was just so focused on his crush.
Exactly. But then I realized, okay, the show is literally already filming. And then they were pretty quickly saying it's going to be another young, probably high school age Peter Parker, so that wouldn't even work for Kristen Ritter.
Age-wise.
And then on top of that, again, that would be another deal. Like Sony and Marvel would have to come to a separate agreement to be like, hey, and what if this Peter Parker shows up on this Netflix show that you're not profiting from, Sony? How do you like that?
And Sony, there's nothing in it for them at all. I mean, what's in it for Sony in this Marvel deal is frankly, Kevin Feige's wisdom about how to direct this character, which is pretty invaluable.
Yeah.
Since they've not been able to totally master that on their own. And B, massive, beautiful exposure for their character in these very successful Marvel movies.
With the Spider-Man movie brand tarnished, it's about using Marvel's aura to... And because, now that we know the deal, it is fascinating that there's no money involved. And so Sony is not making any money off of what we presume is Civil War, whatever movie Spider-Man is in.
And Marvel's not making any money off their solo film.
But it's for Sony, it's that you kind of help us get Spider-Man his mojo back.
Yeah, you help get Spider-Man back on track. You help put the shine back on him by having him one of what is probably going to be a very successful movie, which is Civil War, if Marvel's track record is to be believed, to get exposure for this character in a positive way. And then Marvel gets to use the character, which they've desperately wanted to use, which is huge for them, and they get the merchandising.
Right, because they already own that, and now it's like, yay, those Spider-Man Civil War toys, those would be pretty awesome, right? So, but there's a limit, and so for right now, I don't think, that...
Not on TV.
Sorry, but one day, who knows? We didn't think the deal could happen for the movie, and it did. So.
I did,
I mean, I thought it could, but I also thought it was very easy for it to...
I will direct you back to podcast months and months and months ago where I bet... I'll have to dig it up, where I bet one Christopher Carl, one Jim Vejvoda, that it in fact was going to happen. So
the worse that the movie...
That was so petty.
The worse that movie brand was doing, the more it was in Sony's benefit to do this,
Yeah.
And so I think, the stars, as we said the night the news broke, that I was saying, it's a terrible lesson for Hollywood to take, but it was like those Spider-Man movies not going over well was what we needed for this deal to happen.
I think that the final thing for the deal was the hack.
Right. And the fact that the deal could happen.
Yeah, and Sony being and the emails came out that it had fallen apart, but still the hack hurt them so much that they needed to rebound.